Mica Miller, she was a 30-year-old preacher's wife. Not quite Whitney Houston-esque. She wasn't. Well, she did sing in church, but I don't think she was singing the songs on the Preacher's Wife soundtrack. But at the end of the day, near her attempted or her actual suicide, that's what has been ruled. Um, she filed for divorce from her husband at the time, the man named John Paul Miller, who's ahead of his own church. But there's been a lot of allegations, a lot of accusations of mistreatment, of abuse, of all sorts of things. He has categorically denied all of it, saying she was mentally ill. All I was trying to do was get her help. She had delusions. She had problems this way and that way. But is it all true? That's what I think we're all trying to figure out right now. It's kind of one word against the other. Joining us to discuss, Eric Faddis, defense attorney, former prosecutor. This is a weird case of unhealthy individuals that seem to have a record of not being on the on a good healthy path in many portions of their life. Uh, just as you start to dive into this one and look at it, what's been some of your initial reactions?
Well, the one thing that jumps out to me is recently there have been a lot of these allegations of misdeeds in the religious context.
Hmm.
That's something that we see time and again. And you look at even the Daybell stuff that had some association with LDS, although it wasn't the mainstream LDS at all. It was his own sort of thing.
Hmm.
But you just kind of are repeatedly seeing that these allegations of mistreatment and abuse within the church setting. And so I think that that's something that the public notices and is familiar with. And so that could benefit the accuser, but still a long way to go on this.
There is. And John Paul's not been charged with anything as of right now. There is an FBI investigation that has been initiated into this. Mica Miller, by most accounts, was on her way out. She was looking forward to getting divorced and moving on. She even had plans to possibly go to Kenya, where she had gone in the past on some mission trips, even shipping some of her stuff there uh, for that future endeavor. One of the big questions I think that comes to light in this case is the fact that, okay, it's been ruled a suicide. How many suicides have more than one spent bullet to the head being found at the scene of the crime, and including an unspent bullet as well?
That's the part that really raises a red flag. We've seen some other alleged suicides where there's like multiple stab wounds, multiple gunshots, and those are the things that are revisited because everyone sees that and says that can't happen.
Hmm.
What are you talking about? It just defies common sense to think that that's how it played out. Now, if they had a darn good medical examiner who could explain why that is, then I'd be interested to hear it. But otherwise, I'm pretty skeptical.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, you don't. I mean, you bullet to the head. I don't know how you're missing. That's another part that just doesn't add up. I'm not saying John Paul did it, but it certainly the first person you're going to look at is the spouse or the former spouse of the individual who is dead under somewhat mysterious circumstances. Here's a clip of Mica Miller talking about divorce and talking about abuse just shortly before her death on social media.
I've had a lot of women that have reached out to me about situations of abuse. And I just want to tell you what a lot of people have told me. Male or female, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what gender you are. Abuse is abuse. And you are the bride of Christ. And my Bible says that he took all the abuse you could think of for you so that you didn't have to live that life of slavery and bondage and pain. So you don't have to stay in a abusive relationship, whether that's sexual, whether that's somebody forcing you to take illegal drugs or alcohol abuse or physical abuse, psychological abuse, making you think that this is all your fault, or you're a bad mom, or you're a bad wife, or you're a bad husband, or you're not giving it your all when you know you are. God hates divorce, but why? According to everybody I've asked and the scriptures that I've found, it's because it hurts people. But does abuse hurt people? How do you think God feels about that?
Shortly after that, she was found dead, and it was just days after she filed for divorce from John Paul Miller. Thoughts on that?
In looking at that video, it looks like someone who is in distress, but not someone who's ready to off themselves. In
Yeah.
fact, it looks like someone who's ready to liberate themselves, who's ready to begin a new life. And that's wholly inconsistent with suicide.
hmm The 911 call was also very interesting. Lots of people who knew Micah saying this. I mean, this does not sound like her directly. I mean, it's her voice, but it's not her delivery, if you will. Let's take a quick listen to that.
Robinson County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi, are you able to trace the location of my phone?
Let me see. Don't know where you're at.
And National Park,
What's the phone number you're calling me from?
843-655-5242.
Where's the park located at?
In Fair Bluff.
Let's see.
I have my location on, I think, on my phone. Find My Phone is on. I just did my my location.
Okay, I'm showing, hold on one second. I don't think you are in Robeson County. The Lumber River State Park?
Yeah, that's where I am.
Okay. Tell me what's, happened.
I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Okay, ma'am. Just listen to what I'm saying, okay? Let me make sure I got the exact location where you're at, okay? Just 1 minute.
Kind of a bizarre 911 call. There's even an accusation saying that it may have been AI voice being used on that. And I don't know. I mean, the jury's out, I think, on some of these things.
Yeah, ostensibly, she sounds despondent. She sounds kind of withdrawn. There is nowadays the ever-present concern that there is that AI could have been used to manufacture something. I'm not saying that that's what
hmm
happened here at all, but I have other cases in Colorado. There's a case going on where some accuser used AI to fabricate a phone call, and it's the other person's voice, and it sounds like them, but it's not them.
Yeah.
And so, certainly further investigation needs to be done to verify the validity of that call.
Just right, literally the day after um, uh, she ended her life, allegedly, uh, John Paul was in church preaching, which seems a little bit odd. You might want to take a couple days to yourself. I don't know. But that's not really exactly what he did. Let's take a look at that, where he tells his congregation about the death of his estranged wife.
We're not going to do an altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up, and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can, so y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next little bit, because I don't want to have. I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks, I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away, and it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina, and we're gonna have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can. Yeah, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her.
Now, I mean, that may be true. Some folks who suffer from mental illness do not want to take medication. I have no idea what was going on here. That's his narrative. That's the narrative he's putting out to his congregation and telling them, don't talk about this. The day after she's dead.
In watching it, I can't help but think about the value that he places on that role in the church, and how that's so important to him. It's so important that he couldn't even miss it the day after his partner what became deceased. And so and then you hear in his voice, he sounds like he might be in distress. Yeah, I guess anybody kind of could put that on if they wanted to. And hearing it just seems peculiar that he would be at the pulpit the next day to me.
And he talks about taking a break. Nope. About a week later, he's preaching at the service of her funeral, too. Let's take a look at that.
She was so creative. Everything she did was so creative. What's the next picture? What's the next picture? She'd stop. We'd be on the way to like a show or something. She'd say, "Stop, I gotta get a picture." I said, "We're gonna be late." She said, "I don't care." What's the next picture? Next picture. So one of the things she did for me is I'm a comic guy, right? So this is things she did that was just out of the givingness of her. She dressed up like Mystique, the last one. So the next picture, she loved this picture. She thought that was the funniest picture in the world.
The demeanor there. Again, he's not charged with anything. He's innocent as of right now. I don't know. It just doesn't play well. It doesn't read well, if you will.
Tony, everyone has a different cry. I've got an ugly cry. I will
Mhm.
admit to that. It's embarrassing. In hearing him, one thing I noticed is he's like sniffing in a lot as if he had like all this mucus from crying, but you can't really hear any mucus in the inhalation. Maybe I'm parsing this out too much, but I don't see any tears. And is it consistent with someone who just has a weird cry? Sure. But is it consistent with someone who's just trying to put it on? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, and he's the thing is, in reality, she had already moved on from him. She didn't want to be with him. He had accusations of harassment and many other things against him, even posting a topless photo of her online in revenge. This is a pastor,
It's not very godly.
and he apologizes for it eventually. It was just up for an hour, is what he says in the apology letter. First denying it, then it came out that he did. He wrote the obituary as well, and just half of the obituary is about him, which is interesting. She helped
I know it.
Pastor JP with the church in every way. Mica was the worship leader, graphics designer, youth leader. Mica made the greatest efforts to always be the best wife she could be. She truly served Jesus and her husband with all of her heart. She would praise her husband after every church service, telling him he was the best preacher in the world, even if it wasn't true. She also told him he was the funniest preacher in the world, even though that wasn't true either. Mica loved her family so much. I mean, he's really controlling the narrative on this, or attempting to control the narrative on this, that everything was kind of hunky-dory. And, people die. You don't want to say anything bad about them. But I don't know. It just seems like he's really kind of grasping on here, going, this is how I want people to see this.
Yeah, sort of this. We got this revenge porn preacher who's really making it about himself here in this
Yeah.
obituary. It's sort of. I'm no psychologist, but some people might say that that's consistent with narcissism. It's
Mhm.
consistent with, him having this image of himself, and like you said, wanting everyone else to share that image, even in light of this horrible tragedy of his partner. He's still kind of the main focus in his mind, and that's just a bad look, man.
It's a little weird. It's a little weird. Here he is online trying to explain a lot of this away.
My wife was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder, schizophrenia, dependent personality disorder, and several other diagnoses by different doctors at different times all throughout the past 7 years. The two diagnoses that stayed with her every single year was schizophrenia and bipolar 2. Bipolar 2 is where you're super high and you want to give away $1,000. The low is you want to end your life. And she went super high and super low many, many times over the years. And it was a struggle, almost a constant struggle, but we got through it. And the schizophrenia is where she would hear voices or talk to people that were not there. She'd play chess with people that were not there without a chessboard. She would sometimes forget who I was or forget that I was her husband. She'd forget who she was or forget that she was my wife. Sometimes she'd forget who her family is, things like that. And on March 11th, remember that date because you super sleuths out there are going to need to know that date for the future. But on March 11th, something happened that kind of forever changed the course of our lives. And she went really deep into the schizophrenia and was delusional and accusing me of certain things, slashing tires or sending a naked picture or stalking her or things like that I didn't do. And I found an Apple AirTag in my car, in my truck that week, and I assumed it was hers because I would keep seeing her pop up where I was at. Here's a video of, I was at a gas station on March 13th, and I look up and I see this very beautiful woman in a car that I've never seen before. And I learned quickly, of course, it was my wife. And she was hiding out or spying or something, and began videotaping me. And so I videotaped her, videotaping me. But it's sad that the mental illness is sad, but we managed to always find lightheartedness in life in spite of it, and we always got through it. And I would do things like sometimes I had to play into the delusion, like pretend like I was a double agent who quit their job to marry this beautiful girl, and I'd have to show her our marriage license. And one time I even wrote a resignation to an agency saying that I can no longer work for you because I fell in love and wanted to get married, and things like that. It would help her take her medicine when she would come off of it. And I learned that about 2 years into the marriage. And we worked hard to keep her on her medicine. We worked very hard to keep her enjoying her life. She didn't have to cook a single meal. She didn't have to clean. She didn't have to work. She just had to take her medicine and enjoy her life. And we did our best with what we had. But
Assuming that's true, okay, but I don't know. I mean, this is his accusations of how things were going versus what the other side is saying. I mean, what do you make of that video?
In watching it, what it screams to me is like, oh, the preacher is the best dude ever, and Micah's just this horribly distressed, troubled individual, and there's really a contrast in terms of how he's describing both of them. Clearly mental health affects relationships
Oh
and
yeah.
affects people, and perhaps that it did result in suicide. I don't know, but he just seems like a bit of a slippery eel, and that this was sort of contrived and certainly thought about a lot because he had the video queued up ready to go.
Yeah, he's got the answers immediately. And sometimes people, they're just telling the truth of what actually did happen, and this does certainly look suspicious and odd. So if you didn't do anything, you would be out there just trying to clear your name. But we just know of his past, of his history. He met her. She was the nanny of his with his in his former marriage. She was 15 when they met. There's accusations from the ex-wife of him having affairs, having prostitutes, and having sexual relations with underage girls as well. There's just a lot. There's a lot that doesn't look good on him, which then makes everything else look really bad. And that's where hopefully the investigation into this can go where it goes. Because again, he's innocent until proven guilty. But it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, no, it seems like almost he's trying desperately to overcompensate
Hmm.
for all of these insinuations and ideas people might have about him and what his involvement can be. And he's kind of going overly on the defensive in my appraisal. And it comes off as a little disingenuous and rehearsed and
Yeah.
orchestrated.
Well, he denies everything categorically to this day. And again, no charges have been filed at this point, but there is an investigation that's going on into this suspicious death of Mica Miller. We'll have to watch and see where this all goes. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.